The following episode contains approximately 815 spoilers for all seasons and episodes of Lost. You've been warned. Welcome back to Lost the Plot. It's the podcast where two Irish lads talk absolute shite about ABC's hit show Lost. This week we're reviewing season 1, episode 16 of Lost. But before we get into that, I got to introduce my co-host. What's up, Ado?
What's happening, Dave? All good with you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for saying my name, which I forgot to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is episode 15. I think they know who you are at this stage.
Ooh, 15 numbers.
Oh, it's one of the numbers. This is the third episode now that's been one of the numbers, and we have absolutely failed to capitalize on that by doing anything to recognize
We should
them.
have done something. Maybe we can subtly go back and retrofit something in there. How was your week?
Week's been pretty good. Relatively uneventful. Although, do you know what? There was something that happened a couple of days ago, right?
Do tell, because I got fucking nothing.
So, Dave, cast your mind back not too far when we appeared on the other podcast, Lost in My 40s.
The rival podcast, yes. How could I forget?
So in the episode 2 weeks ago, I believe, I may have jokingly referred to them as hacks. I encouraged our audience to not listen to those hacks.
Yeah, of course. Friendly banter, I would say.
One thing I may have neglected to take into consideration was the fact that they do, in fact, still listen to us and haven't dropped us entirely since we appeared on their show.
Nah, you didn't fail to consider that. Let's be truthful here.
It was banter, guys. It was banter. That's all. You know that.
If you can't handle the heat, get out the kitchen, you know? We're all about the banter.
Exactly. You can't keep up, stay off my dance floor. That's the way it works here. We introduce ourselves at the beginning of every podcast. Two Irish lads talking shite about ABC's Lost. Irish. We show love and affection through ripping the absolute shit out of people. That's how we do it.
Exactly. Anyway, why are you bringing up this Lost in the 40s thing?
Because I may have received a DM from their host, Lacey.
We don't have a listener email this week, so should we just use that?
I mean, we can if you want. It's just one word. Hacks in quotation marks.
I was going to cue that up with listener email, but I guess we don't need to.
No, I'm sorry, guys. No listener emails this week. You ain't getting the jingly music. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Please write into us, losttheplotlads@gmail.com. Hey, you know what? Let's do an honest to goodness call to action because we are trying to grow this podcast audience now. All the cards on the table here. So if you do enjoy our show and you really want to help us out, we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to us on your podcatcher if you haven't already, particularly on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I think the subscriber numbers really do help with the algorithm. So we'd appreciate that. You can also like us on our social medias at Lost the Plot Lads on Twitter and on Instagram. And we even have a Lost the Plot Facebook page if you're over 50. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. I know you can do it there for sure. If there are other podcatchers where you can rate and review, that would be much appreciated too. And you can send us an email, of course. Give us some content so we don't have to work.
And because we're so desperate for the content, I cannot guarantee that if you send us a DM of any kind, it won't get read out on this podcast. But as Seamus learned the hard way, unfortunately, just sent me a random old DM on Facebook. I read it out here. That's the way this works. But Dave, I had a thought.
Go on.
Do we want to do what all the big dicks are doing? Do we want to start swinging with the big dicks and open up something like a Patreon? And hear me out, right? Because that would actually give us an incentive to grow the audience of this podcast other than sheer fucking vanity.
Does a Patreon require like a monthly fee to be open if you're not getting anything into it?
That's entirely possible. And one I should remember, because I used to have a Patreon myself on a previous endeavor of mine years ago, but I don't remember that. I don't know. I just hate encouraging people to like us and follow us because it's just so vain.
How about we go to code red here? How about we take it the other way and start threatening people into liking and following us? So how about this? If we don't get any emails, I'll start reading out DMs from my personal account.
Oh shit. Do it.
I'll do it right now. Okay. I'm opening Instagram. I'm going to my DMs. The last message I got on Instagram was from one Noel Brennan, who did the theme song music for this show.
Shout out.
And he just said the word left. And for no context. And for every day that passes without an email, another DM shall be read out. It's a hostage situation.
But just send it a DM that just contains the one word left.
All right. Well, is there anything else you got to say about your week or about life in general?
I'll tell you a small story, right?
Oh, okay. Please do.
So I know I bring her up a lot on this podcast, but I was talking to my missus the other day, and she said to me, do you know what I was thinking? She said, I was thinking of making snickerdoodles. Dave, have you ever had a snickerdoodle?
Ooh, I'm guessing I have, although I can't remember a specific time I did.
She said she was thinking of making snickerdoodles, as in baking is a batch of snickerdoodles, right? Presumably. And I looked at her and I said, what's a snickerdoodle? And oh my days, she looked like she wanted to slap 7 shades of shit out of me.
You're not the only one here. I mean, I know what a snickerdoodle is just from our favorite term, cultural osmosis. But I don't know that I could tell you the components of it. Is it like a brownie with sort of Snicker shit in it? And like I want to say there's like crumbly bits as well.
From what I can gather, it's a cookie. It's literally just a fucking cookie.
No, you're right. It is a cookie. Oh, it's all coming back to me now.
Speaking of which, it's all coming back to me now. Meatloaf died recently.
Ah, shit. Yeah. During the week, as we're recording this, R.I.P. Meatloaf.
Yeah, my birthday buddy. I share a birthday with him.
That's right. I had just made meatloaf the week before. Someone in work, I was commiserating when Meatloaf died with a fellow fan. It was actually a friend of the show, Ryan, our resident fact checker, big Meatloaf fan as well. We were commiserating his death, and one of our coworkers asked who he was, like, what's the deal with Meatloaf's music? And I said, you know how some music could be described as minimalist? Meatloaf's is maximalist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always considered myself a fan of Meatloaf's songs as long as they're written by Jim Steinman.
That's like the Bernie Taupin to his Elton John.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Like all the big Meatloaf songs that I Would Do Anything for Love, Bat Out of Hell. These are all Jim Steinman songs.
Gotcha.
You go and listen to something like Bat Out of Hell. Like people listening to this, search Bat Out of Hell on YouTube and look for the version of it, the actual like album version of it.
Yeah, the 8 or 9 minute long one.
That is the single greatest rock song you'll ever hear, and I'll die on this hill. Either that or I Would Do Anything for Love. Like, holy shit.
I like his duet with Cher. It's called Dead Ringer for Love. Great fucking tune.
Do you know what? Not a bad tune at all. I
love that one. I just looked up Mr. Jim Steinman out of curiosity. Turns out he died last year as well. Well,
yes.
As well. Yeah, April 19th, 2021, died at the ripe old age of 73, which I think Meatloaf was 74.
Shortly after Jim died, Meatloaf actually said, I may die this year, and if I do, it'll be because of Jim, or something along those lines.
Oh,
like now that Jim is dead, he can die. Do you know, that sort of thing? But there's all my friends on Facebook and Instagram and shit, as soon as Meatloaf died, were all, mourning his death, and he was so great, and his name was Robert Paulson, his character from Fight Club. And I'm there thinking, y'all know he was like hardcore right-wing anti-vax as fuck, right?
Was he?
And caught COVID not long before he died, like a week or two before he died.
I didn't know this.
I mean, sure, little sad about someone dying, but he knew the risks.
Is he a Trump guy?
I can't answer that for certain, so I'm not going to speculate.
It's unfortunate that's an assumption you can't make, the way America is politically polarized.
Yeah, and the way, the political situation is in the United States, if you don't support one, you're vilified by them. There's no longer being allowed to abstain from voting, which we will discuss, funny enough, later in this episode.
Yeah, I was going to say, this loops nicely around to our episode. And something about the Democrats and Republicans. And hey, if there's nothing else, I think we should get into it.
Yeah, I say go for it.
All right, Edo, let's go. So this week we are discussing season 1, episode 16 of Lost, entitled Outlaws. Ado, you were angry that I got a Sawyer episode last time. I got another Sawyer episode. Are you livid?
I am pissed.
Outlaws. Do you make anything of that title?
Cowboys. That's literally all I got from it. Like, that's all I can think of. It just reminds me of cowboys.
Yeah, I thought the pluralization was interesting. Why Outlaws? I guess the presence of Hibbs as well, like sort of a...
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can connect with it. Although maybe Kate, because he goes off on a little bonding session with Kate. And we all know that she's a fugitive technically still.
There you go. You know what? That could be it.
That's just pure guess on my part.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right to me. They're two outlaws spending some time together. I thought maybe there'd be like some connection to the Charlie B story as well, but maybe not. Outlaws first aired on the 16th of February, 2005. So this is Lost's Valentine's Day special.
Oh, nice.
Hence Kate and Sawyer traipsing through the jungle together. This episode was directed by your boy. It's Jack Bender. He's back, y'all.
Hey, Jackson Bender. Good to have you back, buddy.
This was written, and I'm interested to know if you recognize this name. This was written by newcomer Drew Goddard.
Drew Goddard. I feel like I've heard that name before long ago.
Does it ring a bell?
No, I can't. No, can't place him. Can't place him.
All right. So these were Drew Goddard's humble beginnings, but this dude has gone on to be a powerhouse writer and director in Hollywood, right? So he began his career in TV writing. He wrote for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, Alias, and Lost.
Oh, nice.
He got in with J.J. Abrams at some point, and then he went on to movies. So he wrote the movie Cloverfield, which was directed by J.J. Abrams.
Oh, fuck. That should have tanked his career. That movie was
yeah,
god-awful.
I was going to say, I didn't like that movie at all. I don't like found footage. There's only one or two found footage movies that I've ever really enjoyed. Yeah, that movie sucked, but he wrote it. Abrams directed it. He also wrote World War Z, which I thought was underrated.
I never saw it. I never Wait. No, I did see it. I just blocked it from memory. It was that shit as well.
It's the zombie movie with Brad Pitt.
How the fuck does Drew still have a career?
Well, he did write The Martian, starring Matt Damon, which was nominated for the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. His directorial debut was a movie he co-wrote with Joss Whedon called The Cabin in the Woods.
The Cabin in the Woods.
Have you not seen it? That movie is fucking great.
What's it about?
It's kind of what it says in the tin at first. It's about a cabin in the woods. It's sort of a send up of horror movie cliches.
Wait. I know the exact one you're talking about. I just didn't know it had the word "the" at the beginning of it. I thought it might have been like a slightly different movie. No, The Cabin in the Woods, 100%. I know that film. It's a love letter to horror and sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
And we should not talk anymore about it because anyone who has seen it will all repeat the same thing. You need to watch it blind. You need to go in watching it. Yeah, you need to not know anything about it before you watch it.
Pretty divisive movie I found among people, but I loved it. I know a lot of people who didn't though. But yeah, these are his humble beginnings. I mean, he did some TV writing before this, but yeah, this is his first episode for Lost, and he would stay on the writing staff until season 4. He wrote right up, he left right after season 4, I think, to pursue his movies and other projects. But
did we not say in a previous episode that Guillaume Marchois was the only writer to survive season 1?
Well, that's what I thought as well. I'm thinking maybe he's the only writer that was on the original writing staff. I do have a piece of trivia, which I can bring it up now, which is Lost was originally got a 13 episode order, and then because of the success of the show, they ordered 9 more episodes, and this is the first of those 9 additional episodes. So maybe they brought Drew Goddard and a couple more writers on to pen some of these ones. All right, well, that's all I got to say about Mr. Goddard. Great career. Looking forward to watching his episodes.
Absolutely.
Let's get into the episode. So we open with quite a traumatic opening. We got a little eye motif of the eye of young Sawyer.
Oh, he's such a wee ickle babby, young baby Sawyer.
Yeah, we don't know that it's him immediately. Obviously, it's not immediately apparent, but we learn pretty quickly, especially based on the history we know. This is a rough scene. This should maybe come with a trigger warning for our listeners because...
Do you know what? Actually, yeah, trigger warning for domestic violence and unaliving oneself, to phrase it that way.
Exactly.
Just to be on the safe side, maybe skip ahead like 3 or 4 minutes.
So we hear like a massive commotion, and young Sawyer's mother is basically telling him, "Oh, get under the bed. You know, your dad, he'll think you're still in your grandparents' house if you hide." She gets him under the bed, not before they tell each other that they love each other. And Sawyer's ma leaves the room. It sounds like his dad fucking obliterates that door. Like
I was gonna say Hulk smash.
yeah. Like he fucking makes shite of it by the sounds of things. You hear a commotion, you know, the ma threatens to call the police, and then she asks him what he's doing, and we hear a bang.
The distinctive sound of a gun being fired off, and she goes silent. You hear the characteristic flump on the ground.
Unmistakable.
Man, this is such a rough scene.
It's really fucking traumatic, right? Like it's a crazy dark thing to put it on a network television show.
The thing is, like we already knew at this point in watching the show, we already knew about this history because it was already fairly well documented from Sawyer's letter.
Yeah, and he straight up told this story to Kate then.
Exactly. So I remember the first time watching this episode and seeing this scene start to play out, I was like, holy fuck, they're going there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. So we have a shot of young Sawyer's face again. He's crying by now. And then we get a reverse shot of the door opening and we see Daddy's cowboy boots walk in. And it's a tense moment. And then he sits on the bed. There's a gunshot and his feet sort of slump over. And he dead.
So imagine in your head what happens next. Kid crawls out from under the bed and discovers both parents.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't even think about that at the time. No wonder Sawyer's so fucked up. And speaking of Sawyer as an adult, he jolts awake. He was obviously dreaming about this. And he hears grunting in his tent.
We, the viewers, know this grunting by now. It's almost like the same sound effect that's used every time. Yeah. It's not Monster. It's not Kate in Heat. It's a boar.
It's not Vincent. Yeah. Yeah. Sawyer shines his flashlight and it turns out to be a boar. And listen, we've all been there, you know, waking up with a stranger who seemed a lot more attractive the night before. but you know, Sawyer just needs to get that boar out of there without Locke seeing.
It was finally able to escape Locke's tent.
Yeah. So Sawyer's well confused. He grabs like what looks like a metal pole, kind of that looks like the same thing that Jack destroyed his dad's coffin with. And he whacks the boar, who flees immediately and takes the entire tarp on the side of Sawyer's tent with it. And Sawyer gives chase through the camp and he's screaming like a lunatic. He's like waving this fucking pole around. Oh. And he emerges into this clearing, but there's no boar to be seen.
Yeah, that boar just flew up a tree or something with the tarp. Like it just disappeared silently into the night. Sawyer running like Tarzan with what I thought was a metal baseball bat.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I paused it and it looked more like just a big, long cylinder of metal.
Just scrap from the plane or something.
Yeah, the boar like caught a gust of wind with the tarp and flew off into the night.
Also, shirtless Sawyer. Yes, daddy.
Yes, daddy. And all we hear are the whispers.
Yeah.
Saeed has heard them in the past. Whispers on the wind.
It's kind of a relief to have Sawyer hear them now because he can stop not taking Saeed seriously. He can start taking Saeed seriously about him now, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I like that they're slowly letting characters take their turns at experiencing some supernatural shit. To my knowledge, Sawyer hasn't really experienced that firsthand, other than, you know, knowing about the existence of the monster.
Now, hold on. We announced at the very beginning of this episode, 815 spoilers. So I'm going to ask you a spoilery question. What is the deal with these whispers? Because I forget.
I don't know. I think that nothing comes in them and it just kind of turns out to be the others fucking with them.
That is exactly what I thought it was.
Yeah, and now there might be something I'm forgetting as well. But there is this sort of, they reference in this episode that the whispers know things about the characters that nobody else should know.
Yes, exactly. Because Sawyer hears very distinctly a whisper that says, I'll come back around, or it'll come back around.
Yeah, no, he doesn't hear it quite yet. It's in the next whisper scene. But yeah, no, you're right. We get our title card. And then we cut to the next morning, presumably. And Sawyer is clearing the damage. And great ocean view windows on his little camp. Tent. You know, I think this used to be Jack's, right? So Jack obviously set it up. He needed the natural light when he was looking after Eddie Mars. But fucking, that's a great little gaff Sawyer has for himself.
Is brilliant. And so he just rocks up to him and just starts taking the piss out of him.
Yeah.
A boy took your dog.
Took your dog. Yeah.
Maybe he wanted to go camping.
Yeah. Saeed, he mentions how he thought the boar had vacated the area, which is a lie that Locke told Jack a few episodes ago. So I think Locke's lies might be unraveling here a little bit.
Yeah, not unraveling, but the loose string has definitely been tugged.
For sure. Saeed posits, that maybe the boar wanted to go camping. Sawyer goes, "You enjoying yourself?" Saeed with his shit-eating grin. Yes.
Yes. It's just that little pause where he considers it and then, yes.
Sawyer calls him Muhammad because I guess he's running out of more clever racist nicknames.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's used Muhammad as well in the past.
Oh, really? Yeah, I thought that might have been like a go-to for someone like him. And then he asks him about the whispers. He knows that Saeed has heard them before. And Saeed quickly, we've seen him do this in the past, but he quickly sort of throws water on it. He's like, I was fucked up. I was probably just hearing things, tricks of the wind.
Sawyer insists.
Yeah, he asks Saeed, what did the whispers say? Because presumably Sawyer did hear something in those whispers, even if we didn't. Saeed probes him a little bit. He says, like, why, did you hear something? And then Sawyer drops it. And he just denies that he heard anything. Who knows? For what reason? Who the fuck knows? But he does a little slow-mo walk-off, which leads us into a flashback. And we have Sawyer in a hotel with a lady again.
I was waiting for this. Or at least I thought I was waiting for this because this scene did not go the way I was expecting it to.
Yeah, I remember the last episode where this happened. You said you remembered it differently. And I was like, oh, is this maybe what he was thinking of? But then something else entirely happened here, to my expectations as well. I had forgotten about this. Before we get to that, there's obviously a very specific type of lady who always falls for this kind of grift because Sawyer's always with some like close to middle-aged blonde white lady.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a type.
But I guess that's kind of who these rich white guys that he's trying to con end up marrying. So that makes sense.
Now, look, think of it this way. Sure, he's only there to con them out of their money, so it doesn't matter the type of woman. But for this particular type of con, he's still got to fuck them.
Yeah.
Right? So, he's allowed to be a little bit more discerning in the type of woman he picks up.
So they collapse on the bed. And a voice comes from the shadows that says, okay, this is really awkward.
Yeah.
And he flicks on the light. And motherfucking Robert Patrick is sitting there.
I know. I did not remember it being him.
Maybe the biggest guest, certainly the biggest guest star in this show so far. Maybe the most noteworthy actor to be in this show so far.
I mean, I only know him for the one thing, I think, which is obviously Terminator 2, right?
Yeah, correct. Terminator 2, Judgment Day. He plays the T-1000. He kind of plays like a lot of sort of villains or authority figures in other movies. He had an episode, like a multi-episode arc on The Sopranos, I remember. But he's a pretty big name in Hollywood.
Yeah, fucking huge. And I honestly didn't recognize him at first.
Why do you think that is?
Because I was confusing him with another actor.
Oh, yeah. Who's that?
Bill Paxton.
Oh yeah, Bill Paxton. Yeah. He's I think he died a couple of years ago. R.I.P. But he's a great actor. He was in Aliens, I think, back in the day.
I'm embarrassed to say I only know him from the MCU Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show.
Oh, he's in that?
Yeah, he's in that. Not major part. He's kind of like this might be a little bit spoilery. He turns out to be a bit of an antagonist in season 1. But yeah, I see this guy sitting there and I'm like, is that Bill Paxton? And then it was only after like a minute or two of him talking. I was like, no, it's okay. Yeah.
So Sawyer identifies this character played by Robert Patrick as a man named Hibbs. And, he promptly gets rid of the ma. He manages to get her to fuck off, tells her he'll meet her down the bar later on. And he turns to Hibbs. Hibbs comments on the attractiveness of the woman. And then Sawyer gets him up against the wall and starts strangling him. And he kindly reminds him that he said he would kill him if he'd seen him again. He owes him an out killing.
Hibbs has got an ace up his sleeve.
Yeah, he sort of chokes out that he wants to make things right. And he says that Sawyer ain't the killing type, which seems like a throwaway line, but it's actually quite thematic for this episode.
Absolutely. I didn't even catch that.
So he says, I got something you're going to want to see. And he gives him an envelope. And he says this envelope makes them even for the Tampa job, which is presumably
yes, the cliched Manila envelope.
The Tampa job is presumably where he fucked Sawyer over and why Sawyer wants to kill him. And Sawyer's incredulous about this. He asks what it is. And Hibbs says it's the known whereabouts of the OG Sawyer, the guy that was responsible for the deaths of our Sawyer's parents.
Of all the things that are going to make it right for the quote unquote Tampa job, yeah, knowing where this motherfucker's whereabouts are, yeah, that ought to do it.
That's Sawyer's primary motivation in life, pretty much, as we learned in his last focused episode. Hibbs says it's a dude named Frank Duckett, who went formerly by Frank Sawyer, and he runs a shrimp van in Sydney.
A fucking shrimp van. It's like the weirdest thing for someone to do in retirement from conning people out of money. Like, I'm expecting him to be, sitting by a pool, big mansion, gold car, this kind of shit. But no.
I didn't even think about that. I guess it's possible that he fucked someone over and he had to run away to Australia and he kind of lost all his money in that way. But yeah, no, you're right. It's not as glamorous as you'd expect. Sawyer can't be too happy about his life choices if this cunt.
Unless the shrimp van is a money laundering scheme.
Oh, there you go. So Hibbs includes a photo of this cunt, and Sawyer's, he's like, that's him. He's a man on a mission now. We come back to the island. Jack and Kate are stashing the guns. Jack very conveniently confirms that nobody asked any questions about the guns. They kind of all just assumed they were the marshals, but there is a snafu. Sawyer still has his gun.
Oh, fucking course he does.
Of course. Kate's pretty confident she can get it back. Jack is not super happy about the idea of her doing this because he said, last time we got you to get something from him, you ended up making out with him.
Jack needs to calm the fuck down, right? He's overplaying his hand way too much in this episode.
Do you think?
Yeah, like his jealousy is definitely showing.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. Interesting thing that Kate says here, though. She says that she made out with him because torturing him didn't work. Let me ask you this in two parts. Do you think, A, this is the writers trying to return agency to her? And whether or not you think so, B, does this line return agency to her? Because, we had talked about how what Sawyer did was pretty fucking gross and rapey and like manipulative. He basically, from the way we perceived it, he forced her into doing that.
I don't know if it's a deliberate attempt to return agency to Kate, because I don't know. It feels a little too subtle for the writers of Lost, but I think it unintentionally does have that effect, which is a positive thing.
So Jack just says, forget about it. He's literally more willing to leave this gun in Sawyer's hand than he is to have Kate in Sawyer's pocket, because that's what he thinks. He doesn't want Kate to owe him anything, to owe Sawyer anything.
No, isn't it that he's more than happy to have the gun in Sawyer's hands rather than go after it and, challenge Sawyer to give it back. He says like, it's just not worth it. We all know how that interaction would go anyway. If Jack comes to Sawyer and is like, okay, time to give me back the gun, Sawyer would just be there. What gun?
Yeah. To be honest, it's a scene I want to see. I wish Jack hadn't made this decision.
Come on, Sawyer, give it back.
But he does specifically say that he doesn't want Kate to owe him anything. So then we cut to the caves where Charlie is doing something.
I literally have that in my notes. Yeah. Charlie is making ... something.
That's exactly what I said. Charlie's doing ... something ? When Claire approaches, there was a cutscene where it's implied that he's making a shovel for burying Ethan's body, but this does not look like that. This does not fucking look like that.
I thought maybe he was stringing up a new handmade musical instrument. That's literally the best I got.
The things they have characters doing, the busy work they have them doing is fucking weird in this show.
Like, what was it? Wasn't Locke doing something with baby shoes before?
Yeah, he had a baby shoe. He was pouring sand on a leaf. We had Rose carrying that big hunk of metal for no apparent reason. I think they're all just going fucking stir crazy.
Yeah.
Charlie asks how Claire's feeling. She says she's feeling very pregnant. We've all been there.
Yeah, absolutely. Identifiable for the whole audience.
Claire brings up that she had some dream memories, some memories about Charlie, which he apologizes for.
Yeah, he doesn't miss a beat on that one.
Yeah, he's getting funnier, our Charlie. And then she asks him if he wants to go for a walk, but Charlie gives her the cold shoulder.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to be shared like a common curry. I just love that line.
Interesting here. We'll explore that more as the episode goes on. We cut back to Sawyer and he's out in the jungle and we have like this tense sort of music, you know, Giacchino doing his thing and he finds his tarp.
It's just right there, abandoned.
Sitting again a tree and he hears more whispers suddenly.
No, I'm sorry. You just skipped over a tiny bit of that. He finds the tarp, grabs it and marches away with it so proudly. Like, I don't know. It just reminded me of a skit I saw of a housewife whose neighbor had just stolen their towel and snatches it off the line and brings it back home. You know, this kind of shit. Like, he's just so worked up over the smallest fucking thing.
Yeah, he's a bit like Michael that time where Michael was out in the jungle and he's like, oh, go find your dog when it stops raining. Do you remember that? You'd expect him to just be mumbling to himself.
Steal my tarp again. No, dare him to steal my tarp again.
Goddamn boy, I can't fuck him and kill them all. So the music is tense and he hears more whispers, the most prominent of which says it'll come back around. You brought this up a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and do you want to know a fun fact? This is, in fact, the second time in the episode you hear it say that. You do hear it the first time.
Oh, you do?
Sorry, let me rephrase that. I do. So do the subtitles on Disney Plus.
And suddenly the boar's back, baby. Runs out of the bushes. It gives chase and it fucking capsizes Sawyer.
For someone who used Claire as bait to capture Ethan, you'd think Sawyer would have recognized this tactic the boar was using against him. How did he fall for that? He was outsmarted by a pig.
Yeah, the boars are, they're like the others. You know, this is their fucking turf. And I want to put that board forward for the Island rugby team. I don't know if we're allowed to have animals on it, but damn, that was a good tackle.
Holy shit, I have that in my notes here. Fucking hell.
So Sawyer's covered in mud and shite, and he grabs his injured arm, which is a nice little detail. Lost is really good at keeping track of character injuries.
Right?
Their continuity is maybe not so strong all the time, but for injuries, they nail it.
Consistent continuity gives me an erection.
So back at camp, Sawyer's cleaning up the mess, and Kate's very entertained at the whole thing.
Just like Saeed was earlier. Yeah. Everyone's having a go with Sawyer.
It's just not his day. And Sawyer claims that the boar is harassing him. And and he grabs a gun and says he wants to get even. And Kate tries to talk him out of it, but Sawyer basically gets her to say that she doesn't really care, even though I don't think anyone really believes her. And Sawyer says he's got some revenge to tend to, right?
This is my fight. Thank you, boar expert. Like, he's got so many great lines here. Sawyer's just so worked up over a fucking pig.
Yeah, he's in a real pissy mood. We get a flashback with our obligatory shot of the Sydney Opera House, and Sawyer is on a dock. It looks very similar to the one that Brian worked at. I wonder if he's going to run into Boone having just bought his fucking sister back off a dude.
Literally one of the largest countries in the world. They could have set this anywhere in Australia, but no, they're all happening in the exact same marina in Sydney.
So he's buying a gun from some big hairy fool, and they have a mutual little bitch about Hibbs and how he's a son of a bitch. And then this guy gets all philosophical about his no refund policy, saying like, if it gets to the point where you can't bring yourself to pull the trigger, no refunds. Again, I think it's just trying to hammer home that theme of like what it's like to kill a man, the effect it can take on people, whether Sawyer has it in him.
This dude is literally here to sell a gun, and he gives Sawyer this big spiel of you look a man in the eye, you aim a gun at him, you find out who you really are. No refunds.
It seems a bit like counterproductive to a guy who's trying to get money in exchange for a gun.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sawyer says it won't be a problem. He'll be able to kill this dude. He's a man on a mission, like I said. We cut back to the island. We have Hurley and Charlie, and they're carrying Ethan's body. And Hurley's has zombie concerns. At this point, I think whenever there's a scene with Hurley, they just need to write something funny into it, because this was a little out of place here, I felt like.
And it's making me feel like as soon as we start involving Hurley in any kind of serious discussions, it's going to feel out of place, because this is all he is. This is all he's for, just making, funny remarks here and there, and seriously considering that Ethan is a zombie. Like, come on.
It's a little dumb. Perhaps we can ask Jorge Garcia about what his thoughts on this line when he comes on this podcast to drink tins. Anyway, Hurley asks Charlie if he's doing all right, and Charlie just ignores him. So we know something's up in this episode with old Charles. And then we cut to a scene that's a little bit later, presumably, and Hurley approaches Saeed and he asks him if he's got Gulf War syndrome.
Foot in mouth, Hurley.
Yeah. Well, you think that, right? Saeed goes, that was the other side. And I actually looked it up. I wanted to know more about this Gulf War syndrome. I was like, is this just what they call PTSD at the time? So it's not necessarily true. Gulf War syndrome was caused by toxic exposures to chemical weapons. And it's more than just a type of PTSD. And it was indeed experienced by both sides of that war, by American and Iraqi soldiers. So it's actually Al Drew, the writer, who fucked up this one. Didn't do his research. To be fair, I don't think he had Wikipedia back then, which is where I got my information.
Yeah, there you go.
Nevertheless, Hurley asks about shell shock and Saeed corrects him to PTSD. And Hurley thinks that Charlie has it, which is an absolute fair diagnosis, I think.
And fair play to Hurley for reaching out to someone about it.
Absolutely, yeah. Because he tried, first of all, he asked him if he was all right. He tried to do it himself. Charlie clearly wasn't willing to talk to him. But Hurley followed up. Yeah, good on him. He's a good dude. He's a good friend. So he asked Saeed, can you talk to him? Because, Saeed knows what it's like to kill a dude. We cut to Sawyer. He's all dirty in the jungle. And he finds some what look like footprints, which Kate quickly confirms from behind.
Yeah, he thinks he's tracking Boar. And Kate's like, well, it looks as though you've been tracking Boone for the last hour.
Or maybe Charlie. So Kate basically tries to swindle him into a deal. She says, you need me because so far you've followed the tracks of humans, birds, a rock slide, and yourself. Sawyer's good at a lot of things. Tracking ain't one of them. So in return, she offers him her tracking expertise. She's like, you need me. You're never going to find him without me. What do I want in return? I want a voucher that's good for anything from your stash. Carte blanche. Whatever I want and anytime I get it. And Sawyer says she's got a deal. So we cut to them sitting by the fire later that night. And Sawyer takes out some booze and he looks at it and he looks happy as fucking Larry. The head on him when he looks at the little bottle of booze.
Get you someone who looks at you the way Sawyer looks at booze.
Kate asks him where he got it. He says the liquor cart. And she's like, oh, Jack was trying to find that. And he's like, well, just be happy I found it first. And he's gloating away. And Kate wants a bit. And Sawyer says he'll give her some booze if she plays I Never with him. And motherfucking I Never. This is where I learned about this game.
What?
Yeah. Watching this as like a 15-year-old kid or however old I was. This is where I learned about I Never.
Holy shit. It was Lost that introduced me to this game, but through you.
Well, yeah, because I think I introduced you in uni, right?
Yeah.
And this is why I've always kind of hated people who call it Never Have I Ever. I mean, not people, but I've hated the fact that they call it that because it's so many unnecessary words. I learned of its existence through this and they just call it I Never. So that's what I've always done. Yeah,
no, I have heard people say never have I ever done XYZ, right? Mm-hmm. And I just always compared it to like an adult version of I Spy with My Little Eye. You could just say, enough. I see.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it's a flourish to make it more, I don't know, whimsical, game-like.
Exactly.
But Sawyer guesses that Kate's never been to college based on her not knowing this game.
And I would be guilty of that as well. I only know it from college.
Kate doesn't deny this. And it just made me think of that deleted scene where she said she was a philosophy minor. So, I mean, I don't know if that's canon or not.
No, she's a liar.
So they play I Never. And I would like to propose now, I've written down all the I Nevers that they say. I propose that...
So have I.
Nice. I propose that you and I play this now and we can just say drink if we have done the thing.
Okay.
All right. So starts. I never kissed a man. Drink. Nice.
Whoa, hold on. Hold on.
Sexuality is a spectrum. No, I'm not sexually attracted to men. I've just kissed a man in the past. I think I've kissed a man in drinking games. I also started dating this girl when I was 15 who said she thought it was hot when men kissed other men. So I kissed a dude just to make her happy.
I had a Filipino guy tell me while I was drunk, how do you know you don't like kissing men if you've never done it before? And I was like, shit, caught me out with logic. So I made out with him. One question down. Both of us have kissed men.
Yeah, moving swiftly along. I never implied that I've been to college when I never have. Okay, well, neither of us can drink to that.
We've both been to college.
This podcast would not exist if we hadn't been. because that's where we met each other, not because we're using our fucking knowledge that we accumulated there. The next one is I never been to Disneyland. Drink. Yeah, have you been to the one in Paris?
No.
Oh no, you were in Disneyland in Los Angeles, right?
You see, I don't know if it's a Disneyland or whatever it is, but it's a Disney theme park of some description.
Yeah.
I think it has like some specific name, like California Adventure something.
Yeah, Disney World, I think, is the one in Anaheim in California, and I think Disney's California Adventure is pretty near to that. Disneyland is the one in Florida. Euro Disney is the one in Paris. I've been to all three of them.
Hey, my man.
Not so humble brag, I guess. Next one is I never wore pink. Drink.
Now, first time I ever deliberately wore pink was last year.
Why is that?
It was a Hawaiian shirt.
Oh, I just used to own a salmon colored t-shirt.
Oh, fair.
Kate laughs at Sawyer and he says it was the 80s.
Fair.
So the next one is I never voted Democrat.
Drink, I guess.
Really? I mean, neither of us are US citizens.
Well, obviously not, no. But I mean, in terms of voting for politicians with similar ideologies-ish, I would vote Democrat.
Yeah, I mean, I would hold my nose. They're compared to European politics, the Democrats are a center-right party. But I can confirm from research with about 99% certainty that Josh Holloway has actually voted Democrat. I went on his Instagram today and he was very supportive of Joe Biden's candidacy. So unless he was straight up lying to save face, he has definitely voted Democrat.
Well, actors are not the same as their characters, Dave.
Oh, yeah, I know. I was just curious.
Also, the reveal that Sawyer's never voted Democrat, not shocked.
Nah. Explains all the racism.
Well, he's from Tennessee. So
yeah, true. Red as red states go. Kate then says, I never voted. Drink. It's actually a little surprising that Sawyer has voted, I think. And Kate hasn't.
Good point. Well, I mean, actually, he could have never voted ever. He's never voted Democrat.
True.
Or Republican, possibly.
Does he drink here? I can't remember.
No, he doesn't drink, I don't think.
So maybe he hasn't then. All right, the next one is I've never been in love. Drink. Cute.
Proud of it.
Next one's I never had a one-night stand. Drink.
I tried.
Without getting into too much detail here, I've only ever had one-night stand. Everyone else that I've had intimate relations with, I've done it more than once.
The one that I had, I literally hooked up with a girl from Tinder, right? Went out, we had a few drinks, got kind of shit-faced, went back to her place, ended up living with her for the next 14 months. so, like, I went out fully intending on that to be a one-night stand, but I just couldn't get fucking rid of her.
I had a run of Tinder dates. My first, 3 Tinder dates, every single one of them became my girlfriend.
Yeah.
I was delighted when I finally had a Tinder date that didn't go anywhere. Okay, so the next one is
No. Do you want to call it there?
Next one's I never been married.
Drink.
Kate also drinks, but just a little bit. She says it didn't last very long.
That is true.
The next few I don't think either of us are going to drink for, but the next one is I never blamed a boar for all my problems.
Drink.
Your ex-wife just we're cutting that out. I'm sorry. I had to. I'm so sorry. I don't mean that at all.
Oh, bravo. But yeah, the rest of the questions after that just become really specific.
Yeah, they're just pointedly, calling each other out. The one after that is I never cared about having carte blanche because I just wanted to spend some time with the only other person on this island that just don't belong.
I am not going to drink to that one. I can't say I've ever.
No, never done that. I never carried a letter around for 20 years because I couldn't get over my baggage.
Ooh, ouch.
And I never killed a man. Okay, good.
I don't think so. I imagine I would have remembered. But the funny thing is, after Sawyer says, I've never killed a man, Kate just has this look at her face like, Mom, pick me up. I don't like this game anymore.
And Sawyer does something here that fucks me right off. He drinks because he has also killed a man. And I know, I always thought this was against the rules.
Oh, are we going to argue about this?
Well, I fucking hate when people say stuff that they've done in I Never. And I'll tell you why. Because it's either a chance for them to brag or, I don't know, it's just, I understand that people have trouble coming up with stuff they've never done, but use your imagination. It's my personal rule to never say something that I've already done. And it gives the game a little bit more of a challenge as well. Also, how much booze is in those tiny bottles? Because they didn't seem to change them out at any point.
Hold on. It's actually funny you bring that up because even though they're only tiny little bottles, like that's got to be vodka in there. That's going to be a super high percentage, like vodka or whiskey or bourbon or something, right? I mean, it's clear. So I'm assuming vodka, maybe gin, but whatever. I would have said that wouldn't have fucked them up too much. However, just last night, before I went to bed, I had a glass of Baileys.
Lovely.
Half the percentage, if even. And yet still, I had about as much as what would have been in those bottles. And my head was spinning by the time I finished it. Oh my goodness.
Have you not drank in a while?
I'm not much of a drinker.
Yeah. And you usually drink pints, right?
Yeah, I have no fucking tolerance for alcohol at all. So yeah, I would say, one little bottle of those each. If you're just taking little sips out of it regularly, oh yeah. Think of the diet they're on as well, how much food they would have in their bellies.
That's true, yeah. I didn't think about that.
Bottle of Buckfast would straight up kill him.
So they both drink for that I've never killed a man. And Sawyer says, looks like we got something in common after all. So I guess we're led to believe here that Sawyer is going to kill this Duckett fella.
Yeah, the episode definitely implies it. I mean, sure, the Duckett episode is just one chapter in Sawyer's illustrious life, and he could have killed somebody at literally any time. Or maybe he blames himself somehow for the death of his dad, even though that was a con man. No, he doesn't. He fully blames the con man. What I'm saying is there could be anything else in Sawyer's life that could have led to him killing a guy, not necessarily Duckett. But the fact that this scene is in this episode kind of implies, yeah, he's going to kill Frank Duckett, right?
The only thing that does categorically not count for this, not apply to this, is his attempt on Edward Mars's life.
No, that does not count at all.
So we get an ad break, and when we come back, we're back in baby Sawyer's bedroom, and he's under the bed. It's a direct repeat of the scene we've seen before. Daddy's cowboy boots walk into the room, but then they turn into the hooves of a boar.
I was confused for a second.
You're like, what the fuck have Disney Plus done now? And a voice comes from the boar or just from the ether, and says it'll come back around. And Sawyer jerks awake on the island. It was a dream, of course.
I like how the episode keeps drawing our attention to that line without any context behind it, because it makes no sense. What will come back around?
So it turns out it was Kate waking Sawyer up, and she says he was shaking. And Sawyer sits up, and it looks like Kate was woken up by a shaking because she hasn't noticed this yet either. They look up, and Sawyer's shit is fucking everywhere. The boar's been back about, and it looks like he's targeted Sawyer specifically.
It's weird that the boar fucked up everything in the camp, except it didn't disturb him at all. Or Kate's backpack. Imagine what kind of tasty goodies are in there.
And just as they're getting their heads wrapped around this, we hear rustling from the bushes. Sawyer holds up the gun, and Locke shows up with a cheery morning.
What is he, like munching away on an apple as well or something?
Yeah. He's like, actually, yeah, he says it through. He's like, morning. He's like a mouthful of fucking papaya or some shit.
Great.
So Locke has allegedly been looking for some shit from the plane. He says he found some scrap metal, some bags of coffee. That dude was out at the hatch, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, I don't believe a word Locke says with regards to his whereabouts. He's at the hatch, sitting, staring at it, doing his Michelangelo thing.
Although he does mention that he picked up their track an hour ago. So maybe, maybe he decided to take a little walk at some point.
Hasn't made any progress with the hatch and has literally nothing better to fucking do.
Yeah, he says he picked up their trail and he tracked them to say howdy.
Like, that's it. Just to catch up with them and say howdy, just to see what they're up to.
But just at that moment, Sawyer notices that the boar peed on his fucking shirt. And Kate's having a great laugh about this. And she banters about how maybe the boar doesn't like his cologne. And Sawyer's like, I don't wear cologne. She's like, yeah, you do. And they're having a great old time. And then Locke immediately kills the mood by bringing up his dead sister.
My sister Jeannie died. And everyone's like, what the fuck, dude? You know, he's that one friend that you bring to a party and you fucking regret it because you know they're going to say something weird. And Locke says something weird. But with this story of the dog, like his sister dying, the mother's racked with grief, and then befriends a fucking, golden retriever for 5 years that sleeps in the dead sister's bed. It plants this idea in Sawyer's head that the boar is the man he ends up killing.
Yeah, so just to get into specifics, Locke says that when he was a boy, his sister fell off the monkey bars and broke her neck. Oof. And I love how confused Kate and Sawyer look. And Locke is just so nonchalant, handing them cups of coffee. And he takes a sip. He's like, my sister broke his neck. Ooh, that's good coffee. I think, yes, I said my sister broke her neck. And so like you said, he says his foster mother was torn up, but one day a golden retriever just showed up out of nowhere and stayed with them for 5 years until his mother died. Again, fucking stacking the tragedies here, because Locke still would have been young when that happened. You know?
True.
So she thought the dog, Locke's foster mother, thought the dog was Jeannie, his little sister, and that Jeannie was letting her off the hook, telling her that the death was not her fault. And I think Kate's like, do you believe that? And Locke's like, nah, not really. But she did. And yeah, like you said, it dawns on Sawyer. Sawyer gets this look of sort of realization. Locke gets a big smile, and Kate's like, what the fuck am I doing here?
And I am going to pump the brakes on this for a sec. I can very clearly see why this story is here and, you know, the effect it has on Sawyer, narratively speaking. What fucking motive did Locke have for telling that story? What was he trying to say? What message was he trying to get across?
That's a good question, because they tell him about the boar. He knows what the crack is. So, you know what? Sawyer does mention how he thinks the boar is like singling him out, right? Or Kate mentions it through fits of laughter to Locke. Maybe Locke is just telling a story related to animals acting strangely or in sort of seemingly intentional ways.
How does Locke always have a fucking lesson on
Yeah, where we've said it before, we'll say it again. He's always armed with something, with some wisdom.
Or maybe that's actually why he tells the story. He hadn't had an appropriate, person to tell this lesson to, so he's just inserting it.
He picked up their trail and he didn't come to say howdy. He's like, oh, maybe I can fucking proselytize to someone here.
Their problem's got an animal in it. I know something about an animal.
So this prompts a flashback from Sawyer, and he gets out of a car and he's at the shrimp van, which is in the back arse of fucking nowhere.
Literally the worst place to set up a business. Like.
And he goes up to this Frank fella. The dude, I thought he looked like an older Jeremy Renner.
Yeah, I can get it. It's in the squint, I think.
Yeah. Could be his outlet or something. I mean, it's not, but he looks like he could be. And they have a little chat. You know, he asks, do you want shrimp and mild sauce or shrimp and hot sauce? And they talk about their mutual Americanness. And Sawyer reveals here that his name is James. I think if this was your first viewing, you could be forgiven for thinking it was a fake name, but we know.
Oh, you see, because I already knew his name, I didn't pick up on this being the first mention of it.
Yep. As far as I know.
That is significant.
Yeah. And it seems insignificant. Like I said, he fucking mumbles it and there's no song and dance made about it.
Oh, he's just so fucking monosyllabic. Like, there's no cracker banter in him at all. I mean, sure, he's planning on killing the dude, like in cold blood, but come on, dude.
Gives a smile. But yeah, speaking of which, Sawyer, the second guesses, and just as Frank is turning around to give him the food, he's fucked off in his car. He's speeding away.
Also, solid amount of food he's getting there for just shrimp in hot sauce.
Not bad, yeah, and he's getting that American discount as well, half price.
Half price.
Although I bet he says that to all the Americans.
Do you think he throws in an extra scoop of chips with it?
So it cuts to Sawyer drinking in the diviest of dive bars. And there's another American there with a familiar voice, and he scabs a drink off Sawyer pretty lively. Like, how is he sitting in a bar if he's misplaced his wallet? I guess maybe it's cash in his pocket or something.
Nah, I'd say he has his wallet. He's just run out of the money.
Well, no, okay. So it's revealed that it's Christian Shepherd. Yes. And I think this wallet comment is a reference to when Jack went to the hotel room and Christian Shepherd's wallet had been left behind. That's what I got.
That is right, actually. Shit, I forgot that. Great detail. You see, this is what I'm talking about. Consistency in these little details. I love it.
I just picture Christian Shepherd in that hotel room looking at his wallet and going, if I leave this here, I can probably convince people to just buy me drinks on this entire vendor.
Well, I mean, he was a chief of surgery. Like, that's some solid money. And if there's one thing I know about people with money is that they will not spend their own if there's an opportunity to spend someone else's.
True that. Christian's looking rough. He hasn't had a haircut in a few months. Again, another great detail, because we know that this has been a months-long bender for him. He had his little incident with Jack, and he fucked off, and Jack's mother, said that he hadn't been seen for months. Christian says Australia is as close as he can get to hell without being burnt. Asks Sawyer why he's down under. Sawyer says he's on business, and Christian, he invites Christian over for a little chat. Sawyer says, leave the bottle. I've always wanted to do that.
I wouldn't. How much fucking alcohol is in that? I'm not buying a whole bottle. Do you know how much they sell each measure for?
No, that's what I'm saying. That's fucking, you're a proper baller if you can. The two things I've always wanted to do is tell a barman to leave the bottle or to buy a round for the house.
Drinks on me, guys. Hey! That kind of thing.
So Christian said he was chief of surgery, and Sawyer notices the past tense. And he tells Sawyer, he's pretty adamant to Sawyer that he's suffering and that Sawyer's suffering too. But that's okay, because some people are just supposed to suffer. That's why the Red Sox will never win the damn series.
Yes, this is the first time that line is mentioned. And that actually, am I right in saying that becomes a kind of motif?
Yeah, somewhat. I don't think it's like all the way to the end, but it sort of becomes Christian's calling card almost, and Jack's adopted. It's a way to link the characters for sure. And Christian tells Sawyer about his son, who we know, says he's a good man, maybe even a great one. And then he reveals, and I don't know how much of this is drunken rambling, but I'd like to think he's being sincere. He says he's grateful to Jack and proud of him for what he did to Christian, for what he did for him.
Yes.
And he says it took a lot of courage. And then he says he can fix it. He can call him up right now and fix everything, because Jack thinks that Christian hates him, but he's just too weak.
I don't get it.
I get it.
Is it like revealing the shame of what he's doing now, being a drug down in Australia?
Yeah, could but just be his pride. I don't know. I feel like this is a thing it's particularly men of that generation. Even if they know the right thing to do, they just can't bring themselves to do it. Hell, I found myself in that situation a couple of times in some of my weaker moments, as he says.
Sure, yeah.
So Christian asks Sawyer if this business he's here for, if that will ease his suffering. And Sawyer says yes. Questionable. I mean, even if it was the Sawyer he's looking for.
He thinks it will. Whether it will or won't now, he doesn't know.
And Christian's like, then what are you doing here? And I can't help but think he's just trying to get him to leave and leave the bottle behind.
Exactly. More for me.
That fucking alky. So Sawyer heads back to the shrimp truck, and we have our textbook lost ominous weather, and he gets the gun ready. We come back to the island. Charlie he's like stripping a coconut or something.
I was going to ask this. What the fuck is Charlie trying to do in this episode? Because first we see him making something. At
first I thought he was hammering like a stake into the ground with it for Ethan's grave. And then I'm like, nah, he's stripping a coconut, I think. And Saeed, he shows up. He's like, how you doing, man? You just killed someone. You doing all right? Charlie says he'd kill Ethan again. He deserved to die, reiterating kind of what he said at the end of the last episode.
Is there no scenario he can imagine that he wouldn't at least think twice about killing him?
Yeah, we talked about this last week.
For fuck's sake, man.
Settle down. He had valuable information. Saeed channels his inner lock and breaks out an old anecdote. And he tells quite a grim story about a policeman he knew in Tikrit, whose wife and 3 kids were killed in a car bomb that was intended for the policeman. And Saeed, they caught the culprit. Saeed volunteered to be on the firing squad, felt nothing when he killed him, knew it was the right thing to do. But then the killing haunted him after that. And he's basically trying to reach out to Charlie here and relate to him and say, just because it was the right thing to do in your eyes doesn't mean it's not difficult to deal with. And he tells Charlie that he's not alone. Really nice little scene here.
Yeah, that was a phenomenon, I believe, that was reported in armies around the world, like a kind of a PTSD reported in soldiers who either conscripted into or volunteered to be part of a firing squad. So what a lot of them started doing, don't ask me when, I haven't a clue, this is vague memory from years ago, is that whenever there was a firing squad, I think the US military did this, whenever they did have a firing squad, 2 or 3 of the soldiers would be given blanks, but they wouldn't be told who.
Yeah, I'd heard that before. I thought it was just one soldier. Okay, it's interesting that's 2 or 3.
It could just be one. I'm not sure.
But so you never really know whether you're the one who killed him or not.
Yeah, exactly. You always have that idea in your mind of maybe I didn't.
Interesting social experiment, if nothing else. We cut back to Sawyer and Kate traipsing through the jungle, and Sawyer is taking comfort in knowing that someday the island's going to be a real nice shopping complex.
Maybe even an auto mall.
I love the idea that was the Dharma Initiative's eventual goal. It's like to just bring capitalism to the island.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it worked for Jurassic Park.
I had to look up what an auto mall is. It's just a car sales place. Apparently they're called auto malls. I didn't know that. They stumble across what Kate reveals to be the boar's wallow, or its den.
It's just a mud pit, Kate. Stop trying to act like you're a fucking boar expert.
Just because you implied you didn't go to college earlier doesn't mean you have to try and sound all smart now. But Sawyer pulls from the bushes a little cute little babby boar.
A little piglet that is seemingly on its own. There's nothing around them.
Not really what a animal behavior, right? They don't generally tend to leave their young. Unless it was a runt or something. I don't know.
Who knows? But yeah, Sawyer grabs it.
Yeah, so he holds it up. He tries to bait the boar. He's screaming and causing distress to the youngling, basically. And Kate's really not happy about this. She looks on the verge of tears.
Yeah, he's brandishing it like a weapon to the jungle. Like, come on, where are you?
So she hits him a swift dig in the shin. And Sawyer screams in pain, drops the baby, and the baby escapes. And then Kate's like, I'm out. You never said we'd be hurting animals.
Find your own way home.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Yes, he did.
Yes, he absolutely did.
So Sawyer's pissed off, and we get a flashback. It's a direct continuation of the last one. Sawyer walks up to Frank, who's, I don't know, throwing some shit in the dumpster, and he goes, Sawyer! And then he shoots him. Shoots first, asks questions later. And Frank is like, the fuck? And Sawyer gets down. He takes out the letter. This really bothered me. Like, it's pissing rain, and he's taking out this flimsy bit of paper.
Oh, I know, right? That thing should be destroyed.
It made me uncomfortable. And he starts reading the letter. He goes, Dear Sawyer. And Frank immediately interrupts and goes, Who? Wow, wow, wow. Cue Curb Your Enthusiasm music. and Frank says, tell Hibbs I would have paid. And Sawyer's like, what?
And yeah, speaking of money, the penny drops for Sawyer.
Yeah, so it looks like Hibbs double-crossed him. This Frank dude, just some American cunt who owed him money.
Yeah, that's all. Had no connection to Sawyer's parents. Their death, none of that.
And Frank utters the words, it'll come back around. So that's an explanation for that, I guess.
I still have no idea what it means. Is he talking about like the karma for killing an innocent man? It'll come back around to you.
Yeah.
That kind of way? Or
yeah, you'd have to think so. And I guess this sort of ties it into Sawyer's paranoia that the boar is out to get him. Like this is karma acting through this boar.
Oh, I did not consider that.
Yeah, that was my assumption. We cut back to the island. Sawyer's looking around for Kate and he finds the boar. He draws his gun, left-handed, and Kate's there too. This camera sort of pans around to reveal her looking on. Sawyer doesn't really see her. He's looking at this boar. The boar's looking at him. It's grunting away. It doesn't seem to have any beef with him anymore because it's just kind of chilling.
It's given up.
And Sawyer decides not to kill it. Lowers the gun.
Yeah, Sawyer decides the camp don't need food.
Yeah, what the fuck? Kate lets out an audible sigh, which makes Sawyer notice her, and he's like, it's just a boar. Let's go back to camp. So he's given up after all that. We come back to the beach. Claire's like sort of looking around. Jin and Son are talking fishing. They got a net. Walt's playing with Vincent. And Michael's working on the raft with a random red shirt.
He's made some solid progress.
Yeah, that thing is coming together nicely. Good on him. And Charlie approaches Claire and he says, hey, you want to go on that walk now? Nice little scene. He understands now. There are people around him. They'll help him. He doesn't need to close himself off. We cut to Jack, who's been quite absent this episode. And he's working away in the jungle, just breaking sticks. Who the fuck knows what for? And Sawyer shows up and he points the gun at him. And Jack is like breaking it, obviously, because this fucking maniac is pointing a loaded gun at him. And he's like, you trying to be funny? And Sawyer says, yeah.
I was fresh out of pies. Love that line.
Fresh out of pies to throw at you. And he hands Jack the gun. And Jack's like, why you do this?
Yeah, I imagine Jack is really surprised that Sawyer's just handing him the gun. I mean, if Jack was getting that gun back anyway, he was expecting Kate to bring it back after somehow nicking it off Sawyer or convincing Sawyer to hand it over. But no, Sawyer gives him the gun himself.
Yeah. Says he made a deal with Kate, and Jack asks, what was the deal? Sawyer's quite tight-lipped about it.
This is what I meant earlier on by Jack is showing his hand way too much. He's way too interested in the time spent with, between Kate and Sawyer.
And Sawyer, the classic trolley, is just lets his imagination run wild.
Yeah, because as I said, Jack has shown his hand, and Sawyer loves taking advantage of people when they want something.
And boom, Jack can't get the image of Kate rimming Sawyer out of his head. So Jack says the Red Sox thing, that's why the Sox will never win the series. And Sawyer's like, say what? And he asks him about it. He's like, it's just something my dad used to say. And he goes, that daddy of yours, is he a doctor too? Jack says he was a doctor, but now he's dead.
And Sawyer joins the dots and makes the realization.
Yeah, it's a really interesting moment. Really cool connection between the two characters. Jack asks Sawyer, why all the daddy questions? Sawyer says, no reason.
Yeah, he denies Jack that emotional bomb. Saving it for later? Like, why? Why not just tell Jack? Is it just out of sheer pig-headedness or what?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe they're not quite there yet. So Sawyer walks off. Jack breaks another stick. And that's the end of the episode. We did it. What you think?
I really like that episode. I love a good Sawyer episode. I just love him being on screen. Josh Holloway has great fucking charisma, great acting. Even though he plays this, Jack the lad sort of overly confident musclehead dude, he can pull off some pretty fucking complex emotions.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just watching him being able to fuck around with Jack. I love it.
He's a fantastic actor. This is a great episode as well. I really liked it. It was interesting how they carried the same theme in the A story and the B story. You had Sawyer, sort of people questioning whether he had what it takes to kill someone. Him questioning, whether it was worth killing the boar, whether it would make him feel better. And then people sort of consoling Charlie on him having just killed someone and how he was dealing with that. What do you think it was really trying to say? Because I don't know if that's super clear about this issue, about this theme. Because all I can really glean is that killing someone is hard.
Maybe ask questions before you kill somebody.
Yeah. Ask questions first, shoot later. That's a good interpretation. I guess as well, like
engage your brain before your trigger finger, I think is the real message here for Sawyer.
Revenge is a dish best served after you've had shrimp with hot sauce. That's the ep. For the first time in a long time, I have quite a meaty trivia section today. Are you ready for this shit?
Oh, I am starving. Hit me.
Gonna serve you up trivia with hot sauce.
Well, I can't do spicy food. Mild for me, man.
Mild it is. So the Red Sox did in fact win the series 4 months before this episode aired.
Oh no.
Yeah, I haven't said that not at the time that this episode takes place, because this episode they're still in 2004.
Good
but
point.
This is later referenced in Lost. I don't know if you remember this bit.
I do fully remember Jack is held captive by Juliet and she wheels in a TV like a teacher with nothing better to do in school.
It's actually Ben who tells him.
Is it Ben?
Yeah, he reveals a bunch of shit that's happened. It's sort of the reveal that the others know what's going on off the island, and he reveals George Bush was reelected and that the Sox won the series. So Boone, while referenced, and Shannon do not appear in this episode. It's the first time they've ever been absent from an episode.
Fucking hell. I can't believe we went through that whole episode without noticing whether or not Boone or Shannon. No, I did not notice at all. I didn't miss them. Hate them.
Good riddance to them.
Yeah.
Jin, Sun, and Michael appear, but with no speaking lines, all in the same scene there at the end.
Uh-huh.
I got a couple of interesting cutscenes for you.
I love this shit, man.
So it's more of a cut line, but the first scene with Hibbs and Sawyer, where he's in the hotel room, Hibbs would have challenged Sawyer to define what a shrimp truck is, and Sawyer would have done so successfully, supposedly costing Hibbs a bet. So I'm guessing it would have been something like, we're running a shrimp truck. What do you think a shrimp truck is? A truck that sells shrimp? Well, I just lost a bet. Something like that.
Do you know what? I was imagining something way more complex, but that's so much better.
Yeah, I don't know why they cut it. I guess just for time purposes. Another cut line here, which is another joke that I really enjoyed. When Saeed approaches Charlie at the end after Hurley telling him to, Charlie would have jokingly called coconut shelling a backup profession in case his musical tastes had changed by the time they were rescued.
So that's what he's doing. He's shelling a coconut.
Yeah, apparently. I got some goofs for you. I know you love those goofs.
Yep, hit me.
So when Charlie and Hurley are burying Ethan, the blankets of the corpse move up and down
Zombie
in a
confirmed.
breathing manner. Oh shit, yeah, that's why Hurley said it.
Zombie Ethan confirmed.
Another goof, when Sawyer falls in the mud after being chased by that boar, you can see a wire fence clearly visible in the background. Apparently, this was because the scene was filmed inside like a fenced-in enclosure.
To keep the boar in, I presume.
Yeah. And you can see that on the Lost DVD bonus feature entitled Lost on Location, The Trouble with Boars. I think it's all about working with real boar, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Anybody on Disney Plus, 12 minutes, 15 seconds in, you can see that wire fence real fucking clearly.
Yeah, right in the top right corner, I think. When Hurley's talking with Saeed, he says that Charlie shot Ethan 4 times. If you go back to that episode, he actually shot him 6 times. I think we commented on how he emptied a fucking clip into him.
Also, how did Hurley know? Because he wasn't there.
Yeah, I guess maybe that it's not a goof. Maybe Hurley got bad information. Or maybe because 4 is a number, it's just stuck in his head.
Oh, good point.
Here's a goof. I'm going to read this word for word how I got it. I think I got it from Lostpedia, right? And this is not so much a Lost goof as it is a goof of all television media and movies. Because I didn't know this was the case, right? And this is a trope that you see in a lot of things.
Okay.
So as Sawyer exits his car at the shrimp shack, he opens the cylinder of his revolver to verify it is loaded. He then spins the cylinder, which produces a mechanical ratchet noise. Since the cylinder is open, it is disengaged from the revolver's lockworks and would not make such a sound.
No, it wouldn't.
That's pretty disappointing because that's slick and awesome. And I'm really sad to hear that that's inaccurate because I'll never get to do it.
Yeah, but now it's become so ubiquitous in TV shows and movies that if it wasn't there and it was accurate, audiences would call the show out for fucking it up.
Yeah, exactly. They think there was a sound missing. Yeah, that's true. Interesting point.
Yeah, because it's in media like this that audiences become familiar with firearms the most. So what's normal in a movie is how the public perceives it to be normal in real life.
So, you know, the popular saying shrimp on the Barbie, which is, you know, an Americanized Australian saying.
Yeah, it's like the equivalent of top of the morning to you for us Irish people.
Yeah, we don't actually say that. Australians actually call shrimp prawns. Frank Duckett should have had a prawn truck, but he is American, so he could have made the cultural mistake.
Look, here's the thing. I always figured that shrimp and prawns were actually 2 different things, and it was just sitting on a pile, a mental pile in my head of things that I need to Google and look up at some time in the future, whenever I think, and it's convenient for me. But no, they're the same thing.
They're the same thing, yeah. Shrimp is what Americans call it. I think prawns is what British, Irish, and Aussies and
the rest of the Anglosphere.
Having said that, I would probably call them shrimp.
Really?
Yeah, I've been Americanized, particularly in culinary terms. I learned to cook when I lived in Canada. So I kind of refer to like a lot of foods now by their North American name. Like I'll call it an eggplant as opposed to an aubergine, or a zucchini as opposed to a courgette.
I've had a few American terms creep into my regular vocabulary by virtue of the fact that one of my best friends, who I work with, so that's 5 days a week, is from America. Girlfriend lived in the States for 5 years and learned English as American English. And even the girlfriend I had before her, Canadian, so a lot of the same terminology. There are certain words that I find myself using, like, and I hate myself for it. Mall, like a shopping mall.
Yeah, I said mall when I was in Canada. I don't say it outside of it, but some words it's just easier to use them when you're in the country.
Cell phone as well is another one that I found myself using.
Gross. But do people even say cell phone anymore? Because nobody says mobile phone anymore, which is our equivalent. You just say phone.
Yeah, because no one has a fucking landline anymore.
Exactly.
One of the other reasons why these words have just become so jammed in my head is because I work with Americans, like as clientele. So I have to be understood by them. And I find myself just wanting to translate all of these into the American terms for them.
That's fair.
Like sidewalk, liquor store, trunk of a car, like all these fucking words, you know what I mean?
My skin is crawling. Let's move on. That's it for the goofs. 3 more points of trivia here.
Ooh,
the first one, the woman Sawyer brings to his hotel in the flashback is played by an actress named Brittany Perrineau.
Any relation?
She's the wife of Harold Perrineau.
Fuck off. No way.
Yeah, the missus is in there and she's making out with Josh Holloway.
I wonder, is she in anything else? Because her face is so familiar.
Well, I can tell you, she actually has small roles in 2 more episodes of Lost. The episode's Numbers, which is coming up in a couple episodes, and Everybody Hates Hugo. I think those are both Hurley-centered episodes. I'm guessing she plays someone in Hurley's flashbacks.
Well, I gotta say, Mr. Harold Perrineau, not bad.
All right, you're gonna hate these last 2 trivia points because I had similar ones before that you turned your nose off at. I think it was Sawyer called Saeed a nickname, and then Naveen Andrews starred in a movie a few years later called that nickname or something. Do you remember that one?
That's not trivia.
Yeah. Okay. Well, these two are very similar to that. Okay.
Oh God. All right.
So Sawyer in this episode claims not to wear cologne. 3 years later, Josh Holloway was chosen to model for Cool Water cologne.
That's not trivia. Actors have careers.
I like it though. I just think it's funny, and I think it's hilarious that someone took the time to point this out on the internet.
One line in one part of that actor's life. No, I'm sorry. That's whatever.
All right. Well, let me hit you with the last one, and then we can fucking get out of here. So when drinking with Christian at that dive bar, Sawyer calls the bartender Slim. All right. John Terry, who plays Christian Shepherd, played a character named Slim in the film adaptation of Mice and Men.
Okay. Do you know what? I'll take that one.
Yeah, fair, a bit more forgiving. I should have closed with the cologne one. All right, Ada, that is it for the trivia. And that is it for our episode this week. Thank you so much for listening as always. And we kindly implore you, can I put it that way, to make good on our call to action. We'd really appreciate it if you shared this episode or this podcast with people who you think would like it. Rate us and review us, all that jazz. We're really trying to grow our audience because we'd love to get this out to more Lost fans and just have people listen to our shite talk more. That'd be lovely. Ada, thank you for your company this week as always. Before we go, what is your theory this week?
My theory this week, Dave, is that John Locke was following Sawyer and Kate through the jungle because he knew they were hunting a boar and he'd run out of them to fuck.
You heard it here first, folks, although I bet you wish you hadn't. That's it for us this week. Thanks again for listening. Have a good one. See you next time.
Take care.
Lost the Plot is produced by me and Ado. The artwork is by Jimmy Purcell of BeenBetterComic.com. The music is by Noel Brennan of No Exit. You can check out No Exit wherever you stream your music. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LostThePlotLads, and you can email us at losttheplotlads@gmail.com.